Well, I hope this works because it seems like we're having some technical difficulties with Facebook. It keeps wanting to drop my stream, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, we'll give this a try. Hello there, everyday Americans. You know I love it when we see states that stand up for their sovereignty to the federal government. Today, I've got a really good one. We're going to talk about Vermont and the legislation in their legislature where they're trying to reassert their authority over intrastate commerce. We'll discuss that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. Again, we may be dealing with some technical difficulties. If not, I keep a local recording. I'll upload that so everybody can follow what we're going on. Please head over to that website. In fact, let me pop it back up on the screen again. theconstitutionstudy.com. That's where you can find out everything I'm doing, every place I'm going to be. Follow the articles, follow the videos, follow the podcast, and participate. Whether you can ask a question, make a comment. I'm going to set up some sort of support system to help pay for all the stuff that we're doing here. Anyway, I enjoy your questions. I love when you interact. And today, let's see if we have a little bit of fun. Just so you know, I may add another story at the end here. There's something interesting has come up, and we'll see if we get to it. So let's talk about Vermont, the Green Mountain State. Actually, not that far from my original stomping grounds in upstate New York. I lived near the Vermont border, spent some time there, some beautiful country. But as I said, I love when states kind of take up the mantle and stand up as a check against an overreaching federal government. Vermont's kind of an interesting state. They, I believe, are the only state that has never required a license to conceal carry a firearm. They've been constitutional carry all along, but then they hired a socialist to represent them in the Senate. But what are you going to do? So let's talk about the checks and balances. We're all familiar, we're all taught in school about the checks and balances within the federal government. 3 branches, checks and balances, that's what we're all taught. What we are not taught, and what we often forget, is that the states are there to act as a check on the federal government. The states created the federal government. They have authority over the federal government, although you wouldn't believe it listening to Washington nowadays. So when a state kind of gets up on its hind end and says, oh, wait. If you follow the podcast, if you follow the articles, I've talked a couple of times that Missouri has done it. I talked about the Texas Attorney General who's done it. Well, today, our story starts out with the Federal Food and Drug Administration. I'm no fan. There is no constitutional authority for them. But what we have here is under regulation section 1240.61, called the mandatory pasteurization for all milk and milk products in final package form intended for direct human consumption. Doesn't that just sound exciting? Exhilarating. No person shall cause to be delivered into interstate commerce or shall sell, otherwise distribute, or hold for sale or other distribution after shipment in interstate commerce any milk or milk product in final packaging form for direct human consumption unless the product has been pasteurized or is made from dairy ingredients, milk or milk products that have all been pasteurized, except where alternative procedures to pasteurization are provided for by regulation, such as in Part 133 of this chapter for curing of certain cheese varieties. Don't you just love legalese? I know, it drives me nuts. So let's understand. Congress is within their power to regulate interstate commerce between the states. However, this is not a law by Congress. This is a regulation from an executive agency, the Food and Drug Administration. Only Congress can regulate interstate commerce, and there is no power in the Constitution allowing Congress to delegate its authority to another branch. It rather defeats the purpose of having three branches of government and separating their powers if one government can simply give it, one agency or one branch can give its powers to another, right? So it's Congress that has the authority under, guess what? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, which says, if my screen is not updating. Come on, give me the screen. There we go. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. And this kind of makes sense. I've talked a lot lately about how we are a union of 50 free and independent states, 50 sovereign states. So commerce between the states is really not that different as commerce between foreign nations, except the federal government is taking over everything because, well, we've let them. Now, where this gets interesting is a couple of court cases. The case of Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund versus Sebelius and Public Citizen versus Heckler. See, in both of those, the court found that it is within the authority of HHS, Health and Human Services, which is the parent agency of the Food and Drug Administration, to institute a ban not only on interstate commerce of raw milk, but on the intrastate sale as well. Now, there is absolutely, positively, no authority, no constitutional basis, no legal method by which the court can grant either Congress or an executive agency power over intrastate commerce. None. It doesn't exist. But you see, the states, we've all been taught that what the federal government does is supreme, that the states are subservient to the federal government, even though legally they are not. So what do? Well, again, Vermont House has introduced two bills. Now, they're H480 and H481 that will allow, with some restrictions, the sale of unpasteurized milk within the state. Now, the main difference between these two bills is that 481 proposes a 2-year pilot for the sale of milk, where 480 just says, no, we're going to sell milk. Right? Now, whether or not you think people should be consuming raw milk, there are two very important points to be made on these bills. Right? Understanding, now I know people who have for years, they drank raw milk. I know it was a royal pain. It was very difficult. My wife grew up on a dairy farm. She says raw milk tastes much better than the stuff you buy in the store today. I don't know. I'm not a huge milk drinker. But why are these two bills important? Is it a constitutional issue about drinking raw milk? No. The first point, it is not within the purview of the federal government to regulate commerce within a state for any reason at all. There is none. It is illegal for the federal government to regulate intrastate commerce. And I'm going to hammer that point that it's illegal. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Anything that violates the supreme law of the land is null and void. It is illegal for them to do it. And I don't care what the Supreme Court says. As far as I'm concerned, the Supreme Court is made up of a bunch of political weasels who can't read basic English. And I don't mean to get personal, but I get so tired of seeing them just trample all over our rights by manipulating what the Constitution plainly says. All right. So even though in Public Citizen versus Heckler, the court found that HHS did have the authority to ban the interstate sale of raw milk. And while this should have been done through regulation, this should be done through legislation, not by regulation. Congress has the power to regulate interstate commerce, not the executive branch. However, and this is the important part, the court also found, pop that one up, should it appear that the interstate sale of raw milk continues, it is within HHS's authority at that time to institute an intrastate ban as well. No. Absolutely, positively, read my lips, no, it is not within HHS's authority. to regulate intrastate sale of milk. It is not within Congress's authority to regulate intrastate sale of anything, and it's absolutely, positively, without a doubt, not within the authority of the Supreme Court to simply wad up the Constitution because they're not getting the outcome that they want. Just because a federal law does not have the desired effect does not give it the authority to violate a state's sovereignty to get the ends it desires. That is tyranny. That's what we 243 years ago tried to throw off. The idea that some faraway government could tell us how to live our lives, ignore the rules, ignore their own laws, and simply force their opinion on everybody else. It is not the authority. It is not legal. And I'm so glad that Vermont, at least, is standing up. You see, both the FDA and this court really should have been disciplined for so blatantly violating their oath to support the Constitution. Congress should have gotten up and said, no, FDA, we did not give you the authority to regulate intrastate commerce. And if they did, well, the court should have been all up in arms going, you don't have that authority. And if the court will not, if the justices on the court will not continue in good behavior, if they will continue this bad behavior, it's about time Congress step in and do their job. But they're not gonna, because they're more interested in their political party, because we let them get away with it. So as much as I'm going to yell at the court and yell at Congress and yell at the federal government, it's ultimately our fault because we let them get away with it. Okay, so this is the second point I want to get to. If we truly live in a free country, and that really is in question, do we live in a free country? Because if we did, we should be able to live our lives as we see fit, as long as we do not infringe on the rights of others. If you want to drink raw milk, if you want to do any of the myriad other things that are potentially harmful, which, by the way, is just about everything. Getting up in the morning is potentially harmful. If you want to do that, go for it. I don't care if you want to do something. You should be free to do so as long as you don't expect others to pay for the consequences of your decisions. And if you want to sell any product you can think of, if you want to sell anything, if a product that could potentially do harm, again, which is just about anything, as long as you don't misrepresent the product, you should be free to do so. You know, when we ask government to protect us from ourselves, we give over our sovereignty. We become slaves of the government. How can we call ourselves the land of the free when you can't drink the milk you want? And you can't buy the light bulb you want? And you can't buy the toilet you want? Because overlords in Washington say so. Well, it's about damn time the American people get on their high horse and say, no, we the people formed this union, and we the people are going to take control of it again. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of being a slave to a government because either I won't or everyone around me won't stand up and say, no, Washington. You work for us, not the other way around. I don't care what the court says. The court has shown themselves to be corrupt. I don't really care that much what Congress says if it's outside of the scope of the Constitution, because they've been shown to be corrupt as well. You know, again, if we're going to ask government to take care of us, we are not free. We are serfs. We are slaves. We are waiting for permission from our overlords to tell us what to do. And in fact, I just did an article that will be coming out shortly. I did a radio interview on WFYL talking about how, you know, you talk about I did an article on Independence Day and how, I did a podcast on Independence Day and how of the 27 grievances that our founding fathers used to declare independence from Great Britain, 10 of them had to do with them controlling colony legislation, whether it was the king vetoing legislation that they needed, not allowing legislation that needed to be passed. The courts require the king saying you can pass any law you want, but it won't go into effect until I say so. Well, isn't that how the states are living now? They pass a law and the government says, nope. Some idiot on a federal bench goes way beyond his authority or her authority and says, no, you can't do that until I say it's okay. Or you can't do this because I don't like the way you did it. And we're going to have an example of that coming up a little later. It's kind of a sneak in. I didn't put it in the teaser, in the advertisement, because I just decided to stick it in at the last minute. We really have to decide, are we going to be free people or not? Because the government's not going to do it for us. It's going to be us that do it. Now, if you believe that people shouldn't do something like drink raw milk because it's potentially dangerous, that does not give you the right to force your will on others. But that's exactly what we do. We do it with, well, look at the Green New Deal. We're going to force people to get rid of their cars and change their homes because we know better than they do. That's tyranny, folks. That is servitude. That, my friends, is slavery. When you think you have the authority to tell others how to live their life, you are a tyrant. And whether you are a single tyrant 3,000 miles away or 1,000 tyrants 3 miles away, it doesn't matter. You are tyrants. As long as they come, let them do whatever you want. As long as they don't come to you afterward for what happens. If you don't like the fact that people drink raw milk, let them drink raw milk. If they get sick, okay, then they have to pay for the doctor's visits. What problem is that to you? If people use incandescent light bulbs because it worked best in their environment and they have to pay for more electricity, does that really hurt you? Oh, but it's going to harm the planet. Well, that's really pretty debatable when you start looking at the actual science behind it. We have to get over this idea that we can tell other people how to live their lives. That is not how a free country lives. It is none of our business how other people live our lives, and it's none of their business how you live your life. Now, you're perfectly free to tell people why it's potentially dangerous, why they shouldn't use incandescent bulbs, or why they shouldn't drink raw milk. But it's not your job to prevent them from doing it. That is the role of a tyrant. That's the role of a slave master. And we've become a nation of petty tyrants wanting to impose our will on other people. And it's disgusting. See, I believe everyday Americans all over this nation should support Vermont's attempt to push back on this federal behemoth, this federal government that is just taking over every bit of our lives. They're telling us what we can do, where we can do it, when we can do it, and for the most part, Americans just seem to be sitting back and saying, okay, I'm really getting pretty fed up with it. If you don't agree with how the people in Vermont want to live their lives, okay. But we need to protect their right to live the way they want without government interference if we want to be able to protect our right to live the way we want without government interference. I'm looking here to see if I'm getting some comments because it doesn't seem to be getting any comments in here. It's like I said, to me, it's really rather, you can tell I'm rather wound up today. I've had a couple of things that have just over the last few days that have wound me up, and it doesn't help when Facebook is giving me a general hard time. If we keep telling Washington that we're going to using Washington to bully other people to do what they want, to do what we want them to do, then guess what? One day they're going to be knocking at our door telling us what we'll be allowed to do. And again, I don't know about you. I find that pretty frightening. I find that pretty disgusting. That we have inherited this nation with freedom and with rights, and that we're wadding it up and throwing it away so that our children will not have it. So that our children will not live in a nation as free as we inherited. And again, I find it quite disturbing. So again, I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm going to go on. I'm going to throw an interesting little twist in here. I know you can't answer me, but tell me, how many of you have been following the citizenship question on the census, the issue with the Supreme Court? Well, I have an opinion about the citizenship question on the Supreme Court. There's a surprise. But I actually don't want to talk to you about the citizenship question on the Supreme Court. What I want to talk to you about is the actual, something that came up in the Supreme Court opinion that was released. Now, I'm dragging up my notes. I didn't have them ready, mainly because I wasn't sure I was going to get here. But most of you know that a lower court, I think it was a district court, said that it was wrong to put that the Trump administration could not put the return the citizenship question to the census. And of course, that got appealed to the Supreme Court, which earlier this month released their opinion, which, let's say it was pretty weird. There were 2 dissents. There were 7 people that agreed that with the opinion, but there was a lot of different concurrences. They were all over the map. It was very fractured. It was very split. But I found only one justice, just 1 out of 9, that actually had a reasonable point of view on the decision. Actually, I don't even know if I go that far. So in their opinion, I've read through the entire syllabus. I did not read the entire opinion, partially because legalese makes my head hurt, partially because I can only take so much stupid before my head wants to explode, and this was really loaded with it. So let's take a look at this. The case is actually called the State of New York. Department of Commerce versus the State of New York. The State of New York sued to get this stopped, to stop the Department of Commerce from including a citizenship question, returning a citizenship question to the census. Now, in the syllabus of the opinion, there were 2 very important things found. First, item number 2 was that the enumeration clause permits Congress, and by extension the Secretary, to inquire about citizenship on the census questionnaire. Okay. The enumeration clause, the clause that says every 10 years the people will be numbered, can include, according to the Supreme Court, a question about citizenship. And this to me makes sense because the purpose of the census is not all this demographic data they use it for, is to count heads for apportionment of the House of Representatives and of taxes. That's it. Now, in item number 4, the court said the Secretary's decision was supported by the evidence before him. So I don't know about you, but this seems like a pretty open and shut case, right? The citizenship question is permitted under the enumeration clause of the Constitution, and the Secretary's decision was supported by the evidence before him. Slam dunk, right? Case closed. Everybody go home. But we all know that that's not what happened. That's not what this court did. So let's go a little farther. We get down into the weeds a little farther, and the court says, it is hardly improper for an agency head to come into office with policy preferences and ideas. discuss them with affected parties, sound out other agencies for support, and work with staff attorneys to substantiate the legal basis for a preferred policy. Yet before I go on, the court says, yes, a Secretary of Commerce, an agency head, can come in with policy preferences they wish to implement. In this case, the inclusion of a citizenship question on the census. Right? It's absolutely proper for them to do it. It's proper for them to discuss it with others, to sound out different agencies for support, and to work with attorneys to find the legal basis for preferred policy. And remember, the court has already said that the Secretary's decision was supported by the evidence. But guess what they said next? Yet, viewing the evidence as a whole, this court shares the district court's conviction that the decision to reinstate a citizenship question cannot adequately be explained in terms of DOJ's request for improved citizenship data to better enforce VRA or the Voting Rights Act. So let me get this straight. The court that agrees that the census can legally include a question about citizenship, and that the Secretary's decision was supported by the evidence before him, for some reason decides they don't like the reason DOJ requested that the question be added. See, the DOJ said, yeah, we'd love to have citizenship questions. It would help us enforce the Voting Rights Act. The court doesn't like it. See, right after stating that it is quite proper for an agency head to come into office with a policy preference, they complain the Secretary implemented a policy preference within a week of taking office. Let me say that again. Right after stating that it is absolutely proper for a secretary to come into office with a policy preference, they complain that this secretary came into office with a policy preference. Could the problem be some of those on the court don't like the secretary's policy preference? Or is it just the fact that he tried to legally implement them? I mean, he's allowed to have those preferences, but he actually wanted to legally implement them? See, if what the secretary did was legal, why does the court think the reasoning behind it is contrived? And better question, what does it matter? If it's legal, what does it matter why? Since when did the Supreme Court become the thought police? Well, because we've let them become the thought police. See, now you may be saying, yeah, okay, Paul, really, I mean, the citizenship is a big question, but why are you focusing on this portion of the opinion? Well, the big deal, folks, is separation of powers. As I said, there were 27 grievances our founding fathers published in the Declaration of Independence. We celebrated it just a week ago. No, almost a week ago. 27 reasons. Of those reasons, 10 of them had to do with passing and executing laws. Whether it was a king's refusal to approve laws that the colonies needed, or forbidding the governors to execute laws, or delusion of legislatures who opposed his will. 1/3 of the reasons we are no longer British are related directly to the illegal control of the passing and execution of laws created by those who represent the colonies. See, that's why when they created the Constitution, they separated the powers of legislating, executing, and judging cases into 3 branches. There's a reason why they separated them. Yet what do we see here? The court acknowledges that Congress passed a law that they were legally empowered to do by the Constitution. Now, I disagree to some extent how much they were allowed to give over to the executive agencies, but the Constitution does say that the Congress can have the census any way they want. Now, the courts also stated that the head of an agency not only followed proper procedure, but supported his decision with evidence. They even acknowledge that there is nothing wrong with said agency head coming into office with policy preferences. They even go so far to say that the enumeration clause of the Constitution does not provide a basis to set aside the Secretary's decision. Listen to that again. Quoting from the opinion, the enumeration clause of the Constitution does not provide a basis to set aside the Secretary's decision. Yet because they do not like the explanation provided by the agency, they're not only going to overrule both the legislative and executive branch, they're going to overrule the Constitution itself. In fact, the federal court system is so bad today, and yes, I'm picking on them today. It is so bad, the federal courts look more like King George III than a court system. Well, just look at, let me go through some of these grievances, and I'm going to replace he with they. And then I'm going to make sure that the English still works, right? But these are all direct quote, these are all reasons we separated from Great Britain that I'm just, instead of applying them to King George, see if they apply to the federal court system. They have refused their assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. They have forbidden governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless they suspend them in their operation till their assent should be obtained. Remember how many state laws have been put on hold by federal judges until they got the assent of the federal court? They have endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their legal migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of the lands. In other words, they got into the immigration and naturalization. Federal courts, they have combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving their assent to their acts of pretend legislation. Remember the United Nations, folks? How often have the federal courts tried to apply United Nations treaties we have not adopted, that have not passed the Senate, or constitutional legal ideas from other nations and apply them to us? That is not their job. Going back to the reasons for imposing taxes on us without our consent. Can someone say Affordable Care Act? Remember, we were told it was not a tax. It got passed through a lot of machinations, but it got passed because it was not a tax, but the court turned it into a tax in order to make it legal in their mind. For depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury. Have you heard of administrative law courts, folks? For taking away our constitutions, our state constitutions, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, overturning state laws made in pursuance to their constitutions, even disregarding the powers not delegated to the federal government, even looking at what the state constitution say and just saying, no, we don't care, we don't like it. See, for making ineffective our legislatures and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Isn't that what they're doing? We have a constitution that says we're going to number the people, and the powers in the House is in the Congress. Congress has passed a law. The court recognizes that it's a valid law. It's a legitimate law. They don't care. They're going to just ignore that, basically making their legislatures, our own legislature, ineffective by saying they are invested with the power to legislate for us. Well, that's what they did. They changed the legislation. They changed the executive. The court has literally just usurped the entire power of the federal government in the form of the census. And they're doing it right under our noses. See, it's like a magician on stage. Everyone's paying attention to, will President Trump will put the question on the form regardless? Will everyone do that? Nobody is looking at the trick that's being done in the other hand. It's about time the American people woke up from their slumber. It's about time they started holding their elected representatives accountable. I mean, after all, since Washington does its work in our name, shouldn't we hold them responsible for their oath of office to support the Constitution? The court does not have the authority to change law or implement policy. They do not. They recognize the law was valid. That is the end of it. They do not have the authority to implement policy. This was confirmed all the way back in 1801 in the case of Marbury versus Madison. Everyone says, oh, Marbury versus Madison, that's where we get judicial review. Well, yes, sort of, kind of, it's in there, but it says, yes, we need to review the law based on the Constitution. But the main premise of the case is the courts could not issue a writ of mandamus. The courts, even though Marbury had a case, Marbury was right that he should get his commission, that really Madison should give it to him. But they said the Constitution does not give the court the authority to issue orders to the executive branch. It does not. See, the Supreme Court agrees that Congress is well within its authority to have the Commerce Department conduct the census. The court also, and again, I'm a little iffy on that, but okay. The court also agrees that the Secretary followed the law and that his decision is not reviewable under the Administrative Procedure Act. There's a Congress passed a law. It's called the Administrative Procedures Act. It's how regulations get put into place and make sure they're reviewable. The court says, did I have that quote? No. The court said in the opinion that the Secretary's decision was not reviewable under the Administrative Procedures Act. But they are reviewing it. They're saying he did not meet the Administrative Procedures Act, so we're going to tell him no. If that isn't double talk, I don't know what is. You're saying that you have no authority to review it, but you're going to hold him accountable to it. You're going to say, nope, you can't do it, even though we can't really tell you not to do it. The Supreme Court, in their very own words, in their own opinion, say they have no authority to remand the case or invalidate the agency's action, but that's exactly what they did. If the court is allowed to ignore the Constitution and the separation of powers it created, if a group of 5 justices can ignore the powers delegated to them and assume the power to legislate and execute from the bench, they have become a tyrannical oligarchy that so many of us have warned you about. We've been saying, many people have been saying for years, the court is becoming an oligarchy. They are detached from their oversight. They are not following the Constitution. And this is the most blatant attempt I've seen in that I can recall. And nobody is talking about it. If the court is this out of control, if that is the case, we must respond. We must do so wisely, we must do so properly, and we must do so forcefully. I believe Congress should start by passing a resolution. Now, let me face it, this ain't going to happen, right? Because Congress is more worried about the political parties than they are about actually doing their job. And that's our fault, too. Congress, I believe, if they wanted to do this right, they should pass a resolution condemning the blatant overreach of the court. And in fact, they should file articles of impeachment listing this particular bad behavior. The behavior of those wishing to usurp the power of the other branches of all those who signed on to this opinion. Article 3, Section 1 says, all judges serve during good behavior. Good behavior does not involve the equivalent of a soft coup. I use the word soft. This is a coup. This is the federal judiciary, the Supreme Court, trying to take over Congress and the executive. And it's about time Congress at least stood up and said so. And I'd love to see, I was really disappointed. I went through highs and lows. First they said, no, they're not going to put the question on. Then some said, well, maybe they will put the question on. Apparently the last version is they're printing the questionnaires without the question. You know what? The president should use the court's own words to oppose their opinion. The court said the action of the secretary is not reviewable under the APA. So their decision that he needs to explain his act, the secretary needs to explain his actions under that act, is contradictory. The court also said Congress was within its authority to place the census under the Department of Commerce, and that the secretary followed the laws and regulations returning the citizenship question to the census. He should therefore, supported by the written opinion of the court, they should proceed. They should include the citizenship question and ignore the remanding for review of their explanation. He should just ignore. The court said, hey, the Secretary of Commerce the Department of Commerce has this authority. Hey, he followed the law. End of story. You say we need review under APA, but you said you have no authority to do that under the APA. Now, some may say this is going too far, and trust me, if anyone in Congress did this, and if the president did this, the media would lose their minds. It would be Armageddon on the television and on the Twitter space. Oh my God, lawless president, he ignores the court. No, he's actually following what the court said. If the court is allowed to ignore the law, that is anarchy. We have lawlessness and anarchy. We have checks and balances, but in order for checks and balances to mean anything, not only must the parties be separate, but they must be able to check the actions of the other. Who is checking the actions of an out-of-control court? Who? Who is standing up and at least saying, that's wrong? You've basically contradicted. How can you stand in front of people and put this drivel out? See, if no one is allowed to check this action of such a blatant usurpation of power, if no one is willing to stand up, to have the backbone, to be more worried about the Constitution than about their political party, then we can answer President Lincoln's question. This experiment in self-rule has failed. It's failed because we won't do it anymore. Alexander Hamilton said in Federalist 78, the judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, no direction of either the strength or of the wealth of the society, and can take no active resolution whatever. It may truly be said to have neither force nor will, but merely judgment, and must ultimately depend on the aid of the executive arm, even for the efficacy of its judgments. You know, for a branch of government that has neither force nor will, that has no influence over the sword or the purse, has no strength, cannot direct the wealth of society, can take no active resolution whatsoever, the court's being allowed to do an awful lot. And that's because the people we hired to do this job of represent us are failures. Now, I'm not going to say all of them. But I have not seen one congressman. I've not seen the president. I've not seen a senator. I've not seen a state legislator. I've not seen a governor. I've seen nobody stand up and say, what in God's name are you doing? And I bring this out because this is that important. Let's stop playing games with the Twitterverse. Is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it? Oh, I don't know. How about we deal with the fact that the Supreme Court is taking over the government? The Supreme Court has just started a coup against our elected representatives. Are we all going to sit back and let it happen? Where are the people talking about this? I've heard one other person, mentioned this. And that person was just as upset as I am, for very good reason. She didn't use the word coup. I did. And if you're upset with that, well, good. You should be upset when your government is taken over by a group of 9 tyrants. The question is, American people, will you stand up and do something? Will you stand up, or are you just going to sit there and let it happen? Will you look at what's going on and do something about it, or will you just sit back and, wig out on Facebook? Do we care anymore? I guess that's ultimately where I am. Does anybody care anymore? Does anybody care that our government is falling apart? That not only is it corrupt, it's eating itself alive, and is doing it in our name. Does anybody care? You see, if Hamilton was right, if the judiciary is created dependent on the executive branch to enact its judgment, isn't it time that the executive branch told the court, thank you for your opinion, but no? See, if the executive branch cannot act as a check on an out-of-control judiciary, if a judiciary can issue an opinion that says no law was broken, no constitutional concept was violated, nothing was done wrong, but we don't like the reasoning you did it, if that's allowed to stand, we should stop calling ourselves a constitutional republic. Because we're not. Because the Constitution doesn't mean anything. We start referring ourselves as a banana republic, because that's what we've become. We're no longer a land of laws. We're a land of tyrants, petty potentates. And you shouldn't be surprised that the same government, the same arm of government, the same judiciary that's going to wipe away the Constitution and do what they please will come after you. They'll come after your right to be secure they've already come after your right to be secure in persons, places, property, and effects. They've already come for your right to keep and bear arms. They're coming for your right to freedom of speech. They keep waffling on whether they're going to come for your right to freely express your religion. They're going to come for your right to, they're going to come for you. It's blatant. It's obvious. If the court can ignore the Constitution and say, we don't like what keeps them from saying, yeah, we know that we have this freedom of speech, but we don't like what you said. And even go back to Vermont and the raw milk. If we can say, yeah, we have control of interstate commerce, but you know what? If we don't get the outcome we want, we're going to come for your laws anyway. That's the court, folks. Maybe this is salty enough that people will wake up. Maybe somebody will wake up and we'll start spreading this around. I have to admit, right now as I sit here, I'm not so sure. I'm rather disappointed. I'm not surprised the media doesn't cover it. The media's a bunch of hacks. The media wouldn't know a true news story if it bit them in the hind. They certainly couldn't find the Constitution with both hands, a map, and a GPS. But ladies and gentlemen, our rights, our whole form of government is being overturned right in front of our eyes. What good is a Congress if 5 high priests in robes can simply say, we don't like that, so we're going to change it? Where's your representation there? What good is an executive that has to bow and scrape to get judicial approval for whatever he does? What is America if we are no longer the land of the free and the home of the brave? I don't know, but I'll tell you what we're not. We're not a constitutional republic. We're watching it disappear. And we're more worried about some internet star than we are about the nation we will be leaving to our children. I know it's hard. And I know it's scary. But I don't know what else we're going to do. If we won't talk to our elected representatives and get them to start standing up for their rights, go to your state and say, you know what? Look at what Vermont did. Vermont stood up to the court. Why don't we? Go to your representative and say, hey, you know what? Why aren't you standing up for your power as Congress? Why are you buckling under to a court that has just issued this drivel? What is it going to take? Are we going to have to one day look at our children and say, you know what? We used to live in a free country. You used to live in a land where you could speak what you want, and you could worship the way you want. You could practice your religion the way you wanted. You were safe from being invaded by the government, in your persons, papers, property. In fact, we used to live in a country of laws where the law actually mattered, where the Constitution actually mattered. But you know what? They took it away, and, well, we sat around and did nothing. We played video games. I don't know. I know I advertise this as talking about Vermont and nullification, but I'm looking at this. I have one viewer. Hi. I don't see any comments on the screen. I don't know. Do me a favor. Put comments in. Watch this afterwards and put in. There may be technical difficulties, which may be why I don't have viewers. So I'm probably going to upload the video. I'll release it on Monday because I'm disappointed that nobody seems to care. You know what? If you do care, head over to the Constitution Study. Help spread the word of what's going on. Most people don't know that the court has just usurped the power of the legislature and of the executive because they're not being told. Well, maybe we should share that. Maybe that's our job. Maybe we should become the 21st century version of Paul Revere. Instead of riding around yelling, the British are coming, we should be posting around going, Washington's coming. Washington's coming. I don't know. But yeah, leave your comments. Let me know that you saw this, that this meant anything to you. Because if we don't care that the judiciary is going out of control, what does all this matter? Anyway, have a great night. Enjoy yourselves. Hopefully I scared you. Hopefully I pissed you off. Hopefully now you'll go and look for yourself and see what the court has done. Not just listen to what I say, but you'll go to the court. Get it from the horse's mouth. And hopefully I'll see you again the next time on the Constitution Study. Have a great day.
There's one thing you have to know.